Welcome to the Gamescape, everybody. My name is Jeric, and today we're back in Phoenix Point with a guide and an in-depth look at the Tritons, one of the more common enemies that you're going to face in your games. These guys show up pretty much right away, and they're going to be a thorn in your side for pretty much your entire playthrough. So we're going to do a little in-depth look at them today, kind of take a little bit of a look at their strengths and their weaknesses. And then I'm going to kind of go over their different weapons and different body parts that they have. And then we'll talk about some tips and tricks on how to deal with these guys. So let's get into it here. Our first one that we have up, and the first one that you're probably going to run into, is the Triton Strangler. Now, all of these Tritons generally have some similar stats. First of all, the thing about them is they are quite fast. The slowest ones are the Thug and the Ghost, and they have a speed of 18 still, which is quite fast. Your soldier's maximum is 20 just as a base without any augmentations from armor or mutations or cybernetics or anything like that. So these guys are almost as fast as your soldiers can get just naturally on their own. All of the others, besides the Thug and the Ghost, have 20 plus for their speed, and the Poacher and the Wretch, which is this guy here, gets up to a whopping 29 movement. This guy can really travel, and this guy too. Both of these guys are super fast. 29 speed is outrunning your armadillo. It is basically almost as fast as your soldiers maxed out and affected by frenzy at the same time. They're really fast. They can cover a lot of distance. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. They can become a problem in a big hurry, even with just short range weapons like they have with the handguns that they have. You know, the Wretch here has the Udar handgun, which is very short range. Same thing with the Poacher here. He's got the Hera, which is the paralyzing hand weapon. So despite the fact that they have short range, these guys are fast enough to close that distance in a big hurry. So keep your eyes open for that. The base perception for all Tritons is 30 tiles. What that means, if you're not familiar with perception and how it works, that's how many tiles away they can spot a human-sized target in daylight. So they can see pretty far away. That's not quite as good as humans. Your human soldiers have a base perception of 35. So these guys are at 30, but they're kind of right in the ballpark there. What makes them worse is some of them, a lot of them actually, have sensor heads. And we're going to talk about the different body parts in just a moment. But the sensor head doubles their perception range. So some of these guys have a perception of 60 tiles. And that's a problem because most of the maps aren't that big. Most of the maps are 56 tiles in each direction. So unless you're in one corner and they're in the other, they can probably see you if they have an open line of sight. So they can see you from far away and they can attack you from far away. And so that's a thing that kind of gets annoying about these guys, and especially with the Hitman, which we'll see in just a moment too. On top of high perception, several of these Tritons have natural stealth as well, which makes them harder to spot. The range of their stealth is about 15%. Not all of them have stealth, but the ones that do, they have 15% all the way up to 59%. And so the 59% stealth, really hard to see. It's tough to spot those guys, even if they're reasonably close. So they can cause you some problems too. Probably the best way to get around that is if you have a Triton that's shooting at you and you can't see where they are, just get your guys out of sight of where he's firing from and make him come to you. That's probably your best bet with dealing with the stealth. Hit point wise, these Tritons are not that tough. They're tougher than the Arthrons, generally speaking, at the low ends, but not even close at the upper ends. So your basic Triton Strangler here has 180 hit points total, probably pretty close, 190 here, 180 here. The alphas are a little tougher. This guy's at 370. Some of these other alphas back here are the same. Marksman has 410. The Maniac Alpha has 370. So they get tougher, but for the most part, 180, 190, 200-ish hit points isn't too bad to deal with. And kind of what makes that better even yet is that they have body parts that are kind of spindly and not very not very tough. So if we kind of take a look at the Strangler here, he's got 180 hit points, but look at his individual body parts here. His head is 40 with 10 armor. His arm, 60 with 10 armor. His leg, this is his upper arms, by the way. All the Tritons have 4 arms. So his upper arms, which are his blood-sucking arms, are 60 with 10 armor, 30 with 10 armor on the legs, 50 with 10 armor on the lower arms. So a grenade is going to do nasty, nasty things to this guy. Because he's gonna be kind of in big trouble if you hit him with a grenade. His arms will be hanging by a thread. His legs will both get disabled if they get hit. His head will get disabled if it gets hit. So these guys are not a fan of grenades, and it's a decent way to deal with them, with about half of them anyway. But let's talk about the actual differences between these guys. And there are some very basic differences in that, first of all, they have different types of heads. The different types of heads, they have a sensor head like this guy does. He's got the sensor head, which gives them the ability double perception. That's what I was talking about earlier with the perception. That jumps them all the way up to a 60 perception. Your sensor heads will always have 40 health and 10 armor. That's going to be the same across all of them. There's also the evolved sensor head, which is this one here. Okay, still has the double perception. It's just got slightly better stats. It's 60 hit points and 20 armor instead of 40 and 10. So that's the sensor heads. The other head that these guys might have is the silent echo heads. And those are the ones that look kind of like mushrooms. That's an evolved. Let's see if we can find a regular one. Here's a regular one here. On the ghoul, the Triton ghoul, the head has, again, 40 armor. 40 hit points rather, with 10 armor, and it has the silent echo ability. And so what that means, all of its weapon attacks are silent. So when this guy is shooting at you, you don't get the ping about where he is. Even if you can't have line of sight, often you'll get the little red ping on the map that kind of shows where they're firing from. That doesn't happen with the silent echo ability because you can't hear the shot. So that's the, again, 40 hit points, 10 armor. And then the evolved silent echo head is exactly the same, still has that silent echo ability, but it has 60 and 20 for its health, hit points, and armor. So those are the different heads that the different Tritons can have. All of them will have one of those 4 heads. There aren't any others. It's not like a normal head that doesn't have any abilities or anything like that. So it's either the silent echo or the sensor head. The second place where they're different is they have 2 different types of torsos. Okay. This first one is the Pain Chameleon torso. And if we take a look at this guy, torsos can have varying health and armor. So most of them on the Pain Chameleon are going to be either, they're all going to be either 50 hit points and 20 armor or 60 hit points and 20 armor. Just depends on which Triton you're looking at. This gives them also the ability Pain Chameleon, which means when you hit them and you do damage to them, they're going to turn invisible and they're going to move a few squares and they're going to hide. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit too, in our tips and tricks on how to deal with that. But basically what it means is you're only going to get one shot at them unless you can disable the torso. Or the other thing about it is it does cost them will points to use this ability. It's 2 will points to activate Pain Chameleon. And I believe they can only do it once per turn. So if they go Pain Chameleon and they move, but they happen to move in such a way that you still have line of sight to them and they become revealed again, if you hit them again, they don't get to do Pain Chameleon again. It's just a once per turn thing, I believe. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm like 98% sure about that. So that's one way of dealing with that. Again, if they don't have the willpower, if they don't have 2 will points, they can't activate the ability either. So draining their will points if you need to, probably not necessary, except for maybe on the alphas that are just a little bit tougher, might be worth it to drain their will points. But even then, they have a lot of will points, and we'll kind of talk about that too. These guys have a lot of will. That's the first torso, is the Pain Chameleon. The second one is the regen. If we look at the regeneration torso, it gives them this status regeneration 10, which restores 10 hit points to all body parts every turn. And that means that body part also becomes active again if it was disabled. So it's a lot harder to deal with the regen Tritons as far as disabling them It doesn't do any good to disable their arm, for instance, to get them to stop using their weapon, because it's going to just come back right next turn. And so they got this regeneration icon. You'll also see the regeneration icon in their status bar right here as well. So he's regenerating 10 every round. So, but if we look at this, the torso here has 80 health and 20 armor. Some of them have 120 health with 30 armor. Again, it just depends on the Triton. But there are two different sets of values for the torsos here. So those are your two main torsos. And again, the Triton will always have one of the two. There isn't a just normal torso that doesn't do anything. That's part of their ability package. And then the third thing where they kind of differ is their upper arms. And so there's three different types of upper arms. So the first one is the bloodsucker arm. Okay. And so if we take a look at this thing, it's a melee attack. It's that does vampiric damage at 50 with a burst of 2. Okay, so it's actually going to do 100 vampire damage. And what vampire damage means is every hit point that he takes from your soldier, he's going to add back to his own hit points. So they basically heal themselves by hitting your guys. Again, if you notice, this is a burst of 2, so you have to double the vampiric damage. Effective range is 1. It's a melee attack, which never misses, and it costs 2 action points to activate this. So the evolved blood-sucking arm, same story, burst of 2. So it's actually 2 attacks that do 70 vampiric damage. Again, it's 2 action points to activate. Effective range is 1. Notice that at the very bottom there, it says hands to use is 2. So that's something that's going to come into play as well. This is considered a two-handed weapon, even though they have 2 different arms, and it's still burst 2 with two-handed weapon. If you disable one of the arms, and again, this only applies to chameleon torsos, not to the regen torso, unless you've also taken out the torso. But if you disable one of the arms, it can no longer use the blood-sucking arm attack, because it is considered a two-handed weapon, and it doesn't have 2 hands anymore to do it. All right, so the third set of arms is the paralyzing arms, which are these kind of spindly tentacle arms here. So if we look at the poacher here, he's got the paralyzing arm, and this basically injects paralyzing agents into your soldiers. Does 25 damage and 4 paralysis. Again, it's a burst of 2. So it's going to hit for double that. It's going to do 50 points of damage and 8 paralysis to your soldier. 2 action points again to activate, and one effective range, which means it's a melee attack, which means it doesn't ever miss. And then there's the evolved version of that. Evolves paralyzing arm, same story. 35 damage times 2 and 6 paralysis times 2. So 70 damage and 12 paralysis, and action points to use as 2. Again, considered a two-handed weapon. The other ones don't have that. So if you look at just the normal paralyzing arms, they don't have the two-handed weapon hands to use. So that's a different thing. So that's the general differences between the different Tritons and how they differ from each other. If we just kind of take a quick look down the line, the first guy you're going to run into is the Triton Strangler. And he just has the blood-sucking arms. He's pure melee. He's not very tough. If you put a grenade in front of this guy, he's not going to be very happy, although he is going to regen. So you do have to kind of get his torso taken out, or it's not going to do you much good. The second guy you're going to run into is the WRETCH. He is carrying just the Udar handgun, which is the independent handgun. It's not great, but it's still a threat to you, because like I said, this guy is really fast and he can close that distance and still get shots off at you. So his handgun does 50 damage at an effective range of 17, 1 action point to activate it. This guy's even worse if you put a grenade in front of him. If you throw a grenade at this guy, and he has pain chameleon, so he doesn't get to regen, his head's gone, his arms are gone, his legs are dangling by a thread, his lower arms are gone, and his torso is going to be hurt pretty bad. So this guy does not like grenades at all. Not at all. A single grenade will really mess this guy up, and it's a good way to deal with these lower level Tritons, especially when your soldiers are still new and not particularly accurate. Sometimes they don't have some of the bonuses yet that increase their accuracy and whatnot. Taking out that torso isn't always an option, but if you pitch a grenade right in front of one of these guys, and don't put it at his feet, put it in front of him a square or two, you know, put it here or here, don't put it here. But if you put a grenade here or here, you're going to do a lot of damage to this guy, and he's going to be hating life. This guy, same story. He's pretty weak. He's got the paralyzer arms, and he's got the Hera Synedrian neural pistol. This one can mess you up if he can get a few shots off at you. It's, again, effective range is 17, but he's fast enough to close the distance and use it well. It does only 10 damage, but it does 7 paralysis, which if you can take as much paralysis as your soldier has strength. Once that number is the same, once your paralysis stacks up to be equal to or greater than your soldier's strength, your soldier's paralyzed and can't move. And that number ticks down by 1 every turn. So it's pretty slow wearing off. And that could potentially be quite a few turns where you're not really doing anything. And even if you're not completely paralyzed, the paralysis damage is kind of on a gradient. So if you take half, for instance, of your strength and paralysis damage, you're only going to get 2 action points instead of 4, right? Or, you know, even if you're at 25%, you're going to lose 1 of your action points. So it takes effect even before you're completely paralyzed. It slows you down. You start losing action points pretty much right away. And so you do want to kind of be a little bit careful about paralysis damage. It can put you in a bad spot in a pretty big hurry. I mean, you want to be careful about any damage, really, obviously, but there are some things that are more annoying than others. You can use a med kit to heal damage that's done by a regular gun. There aren't as many things that reduce paralysis damage quickly. There's an alpha version of the POACHER as well. He's basically just a tougher version, and he's also carrying the Athena Synedrian Neural Sniper Rifle. This thing is dangerous. This thing does 16 paralysis, which is going to put your soldier in a world of hurt, and it's got an effective range of 45 tiles, which is pretty good. If you're not familiar with effective range, that is the range at which you can expect to hit a human-sized target 50% of the time. And so 45 tiles away, you're going to probably take a hit with this, and 16 paralysis damage all at once. That's going to mess up your soldier. Even pretty tough soldiers with 20 strength are going to be down to 1 action point at that point. So they're going to be almost out of the fight with just that 1 hit. Again, he's got the evolved paralyzer arms too, if he can get in close. He's also got the Hera pistol, so he can, if he's close enough to shoot at you, he could take 1 shot with the sniper rifle and then also shoot you with the pistol. Now, I don't know if the AI would ever actually do that or not, but it's a possibility that could happen. So this guy can put your soldier down pretty fast. That's the alpha here. The next guy you're going to see is the Triton Thug. He's the guy with the shotgun. He carries the Iconoclast shotgun, and he's a little tougher, 210 hit points. Grenade's still going to do a number on this guy. He does have the regen torso, so you're going to have to deal with that as well, which makes grenades a little less effective. But if you pitch a grenade in front of this guy, you're not going to disable anything but the head, but he's going to have a lot of limbs and stuff that are just hanging by a thread at that point. If you get a second one on him, he's really going to be hurting bad. Same thing here, the Triton Thug Alpha, same story, just he's just tougher. He's got the Harrower, which is a shredding shotgun, does 35 damage with a burst of 8, and that's all 8 hits at the same time. So it has the potential to do quite a bit of damage, but everyone that hits also shreds 8 armor off of the body portion that it hits. It can ruin your armor suit pretty fast. Effective range on these is really low. It's only 10, but that's going to mean that it's going to spread a lot. And so you're going to take some hits, probably even at quite a bit longer range than that. And it might only be 1 or 2 or 3, but, you know, shredding 8 armor per hit, that's going to do a number on you, on your armor. The damage itself is going to stack up too. So shotguns are pretty nasty, especially if you're in close. They're a lot less so if you're quite a ways away. Next guy you're going to come up against, and probably one of the most annoying of the Tritons, is the Triton Hitman. These are the guys with the sniper rifles, and they have the Hitman himself has the sensor head. And so he's got the double perception, and he has a sniper rifle. And so he can see you from a long way away and he can hit you from a long way away. And so what you're going to run into with these guys is you're going to just be clicking over to the Pandoran's turn, and your guys are going to be where they're at, and then all of a sudden shots are just going to come out of nowhere, and they're going to hit your guys. And there isn't a lot you can do about it because these guys, again, they have stealth too. They have plus 20% stealth, which makes them harder to spot. It's just something you have to deal with. And like I was saying, one of the best ways to deal with these guys, just see where the shots are coming from and hide your guys from that direction so they can't be seen from that direction, and make that hitman come out of hiding and come towards you. You'll see this happen mostly on open maps or more open maps. In the cave, it's less of a big deal, but in like the Pandoran Lair, where it is pretty open, even though it's an underground map, you're going to have some issues with them shooting at you from way beyond where you can see. And so again, just get your guys out of line of sight from where the shot came from, and just keep them hidden, make that guy come out of hiding and come towards you where you can actually spot him and deal with him. There are some more evolved versions of the Hitman also. There's the Hitman Alpha. So the regular Hitman, he's got the independent sniper rifle, the Viara, which only does 100 damage at effective range 45. This guy's upgraded to the new Jericho Cyclops, which is a much better weapon. 130 damage, effective range 45 still. Does quite a bit more damage. And so it can mess up your guy a little bit more. Then you've got the Marksman, which is sort of the evolved version of the Triton Hitman. So he's got more hit points, 260. He does have the silent echo head instead of the sensor head, so he can't see as far. But the problem with that is if another Pandoran has already spotted you, it doesn't matter. He can see you as well. So if there's other Pandorans around you, you've already been spotted, this guy can still shoot at you with that sniper rifle. And he's got the Pythagoras laser sniper rifle, which has a much better effective range, 63 instead of 45, and it does 120 damage still. These are extremely accurate weapons, and they have a lot of ammo as well. So 15 rounds he can shoot at you before his gun is empty. You're probably not going to last that long. So I mean, it depends on the situation, obviously, but that's a lot of shots that he can take at you. Whereas with these other weapons, they have much smaller magazines. I think they're 8. Ammo capacity on the Viara is only 6. So he only gets 6 shots and he's done. And then on the Cyclops, it is ammo capacity is 10. So that's still a lot of rounds too. So they're going to be shooting at you for a while. And then there's the Alpha Marksman, which is, he's got the piercing sniper rifle, which is 130 damage, plus it ignores 50 points of armor, which is pretty much everything you're going to be wearing for armor. Basically just gets ignored. Single shot, again, effective range is 45, 10 ammo capacity, but that 130 damage isn't going to be reduced by your armor in all likelihood, unless he's hitting something like a Scarab with higher armor than that. I think the front armor on the Scarab is 60, so it'll reduce it a little bit, but not very much. So this thing's going to do some damage, and there's just not much you can do to mitigate that other than, again, stay in cover, stay out of sight. All right, so that's the Hitman and the Marksman. The next guy up you're going to see is the Footpad. The Footpad has the assault rifle. He's actually going to come in fairly early as well. The basic versions of these guys all come in reasonably early, and then they start getting tougher and going to their alpha versions after that. But this guy's got a Yat assault rifle, which is not that dangerous of a weapon. It's not very accurate. It does 30 damage in a 6-round burst, so each round will do 30 damage if it hits. Effective range is only 17 though, so it's not that dangerous, and it's only got 5 shots total. 30 ammo capacity, 6-round burst, so he can fire it 5 times and then it's empty, and he can't reload it. So. And he's also got the blood-sucking arm, so once his weapon is gone, he'll come into melee and start doing that. So, again, he's not very tough. 190 hit points. Again, you throw a grenade in front of this guy, and it's going to do a number on him, but he's got the regen torso again, so that's kind of a moot point. Next version up is the Triton Maniac. which is basically the same thing with a better assault rifle, and he's much tougher, 300 health instead of 190. And he's got the Bulldog assault rifle, which is 40 damage in a 4-round burst with 2 shred. It's going to peel some armor off of you. He's also got the blood-sucking arm. Also has the regen torso. So same guy, just a little better weapon, a little tougher. The foot pad is kind of related to him. He's got the Demos assault laser rifle, which is, again, a very, very accurate weapon. Effective range of 32, almost twice as good as the Yat. 6-round burst, 1 shred, 30 damage per hit. Ammo capacity, again, on these laser weapons is much higher. He can fire this thing, he can fire 10 full bursts at you before his weapon is empty. So the laser weapons have higher ammo capacity than just the regular ones do. And then the Alpha Maniac, same idea, just tougher. He's got the armor piercing assault rifle from New Jericho, the Piranha, 40 rounds, 15 armor ignored. And then he's got the blood-sucking arm again, of course. He'll close to melee if his weapon gets empty. And then the last ones that you're going to be seeing are the Ghoul, which is the guy with the virus weapon. Okay, he's carrying the Redeemer Disciples of Anu virus rifle. This doesn't do much damage. It's got piercing of 10, damage of 20. The reason why it has piercing is because in order for it to do its virus damage, it has to actually do actual damage first. So every shot that hits is going to ignore 10 armor. It's going to do 20 damage, and then it's going to add 5 virus damage to your stack. And how virus damage works is it stacks up. Everything that hits adds another 5. And at the beginning of your round, you're going to lose will points equal to the amount of virus stacks you have on you. So if this guy hits you 3 times, you're going to get 15 virus damage. So that next turn, you're going to take 15 will points of damage and lose 15 will points. And then that stack number will go down by 1 to 14. And so the next turn you'll take 14. The next turn you'll take 13 will damage, 12, so on. So this virus rifle, if it hits you, can get your soldier panicking and kind of in a loop where he panics and then recovers, then panics again and then recovers again. And it can really take your soldiers out of the fight. And there's not any nice ways really to get rid of virus damage, or not very many nice ways anyway. So getting hit by these virus rifles can mess up your soldiers pretty badly too. He's got the blood-sucking arm. He has regeneration as well. Here's the alpha version. Same thing, except he's got the, he's just tougher is all. Better armor, better health, etc. And then there is the Triton Ghost, which is the same guy, except instead of the assault rifle, he has the virus sniper rifle, which does 10 virus in one hit. That's a lot. Your guys aren't going to probably have much more than 20 total, even when they're fully built out. There are a couple of traits that give you extra willpower by a point or 2, but for the most part, you're only going to have 20 or 22, even when you're maxed out. So taking 10 virus damage is going to drain that pretty fast. You're going to have one turn maybe where you're still going to be okay, but after that, your soldier's going to probably start panicking. This actually also does some actual damage as well. So 50 damage, it's not a lot. It's 50 with 20 piercing, but it's still some damage. So that's still enough to do a decent amount of damage to an arm or a leg, for instance. And so you might end up with a disabled body part on top of the virus damage. So Subjugator's fairly nasty weapon. And again, it can get your soldier locked into the panic, recover loop, which isn't the best thing. There is supposed to be a alpha ghost. I couldn't find it to spawn it in. I couldn't find its ID to spawn it in, but it's the same idea, just tougher again, and has the pain chameleon and the evolved arms, I believe. So that's a look at their abilities. So let's talk about how do we deal with them. I already mentioned it. Grenades are pretty effective against the ones with pain chameleon. Pain chameleon itself can be a little bit tricky because when you hit them, it activates and they go invisible and then they move away from where they're standing. Now they're not going to move very far, which is nice. And there's a couple of things that you can do to kind of mitigate and figure out what they're doing. So if we take one of our soldiers here, and I'm going to get him ready to activate here. So give me just 1 second and I'll get him back with some action points, and we'll see a little demo here. 1 second. Okay, we're back. I moved him a little bit closer, and he's got full action points now. So we know this guy right here, he's got this poacher, he's got Pain Chameleon. And so if we take our assault rifle and we fire it at him, that's the thug. Let's do the poacher. There we go. Here's the poacher. Now we're going to almost kill this guy. So maybe this isn't going to work quite as well as I'd hoped, but we're going to give it a shot here. So I just want to hit him like once or twice so he gets the Pain Chameleon going. So this will miss him a bunch. Okay, so now watch. He disappears. And this bright spot moves right here. I don't know if you saw it. It's kind of hard to see. But what he did was he moved to right here. And you'll notice, number one, the bright spot on the map. And it's harder to see on the grass. It's much easier to see in darker maps like the Pandora Nest or at nighttime. But he did. He moved and he stopped right here. And how you can tell that, you'll notice when I mouse over that spot, the square disappears on the cursor. See right here, I've got a square. I've got a square. I could move there. Potentially could move any of these squares here, but not here. And so you know he's right there. And so he's right next to this Triton wretch, okay? So one of the things that you can do is you can't see him, but if we look at the wretch, we know he's standing right here. And so these guys are fairly close to the ground, but they have a little bit of height to them. So if we aim here, just free aim, and we come up just about even with these other two here, if we hit him again, we got him. And it shows the ping. And I don't know if we actually killed him because it didn't move, but we definitely hit him again. So that's something that you can do. Even when they're cloaked, you can free aim it and you can still hit them again. So that's a decent way of dealing with them. Other thing we could have done is we could have just pitched our grenade over there and probably finished him off as well. So that's one of the nice ways to see where they went and still continue to deal with them even after they've cloaked. Okay. The other ones you're going to run into are the regen. Something to know about regen and bleeding is when one of these guys is bleeding, the bleed damage happens first and then the regen happens. And so if this guy has, let's say he has 10 hit points left, we managed to do 200 damage to him, and he's got 10 left, he's got 10 bleed and 10 regen, he's going to go to 0 hit points because the bleed's going to happen first and he's going to die. And obviously if he's dead, he's not going to regen. So that's another one to kind of know, and another one to help you calculate whether or not you need to continue to deal with one of these guys or not. So the next tip, these guys move around quite a bit. I'm going to give us some more action points here so we can aim our gun again. 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. We're back up to full action points again, just for demo purposes here. So if we take a look at the Triton thug here and we aim our gun at him, we can see he's got the regen torso, and we don't have the best shot at that torso. We're going to hit his head. We're going to hit his arm. We might hit a shot or two on his torso. It's not a very good shot, though. Maybe if we had a sniper rifle, it might be a different story. But one of the things to know about these Tritons is and you probably see this, they're moving around a lot. And I didn't actually mean to shoot him there, but you saw kind of what the idea was there. You see how he kind of ducks to the side and twists and turns right there. So when he turns to the side, just like that, you can zoom in on him in your free aim mode. And now you've got a much better shot at his torso than what you had when he was facing you straight on. And if I shoot him again, it's just going to outright kill him. So I'm not going to bother with that. But you can see how you can, if you're just a little bit patient, you can probably get a better angle on his torso and take out his torso. And once his torso's gone, he's no longer regenerating health. So again, the thug, he's pretty weak anyway. You probably don't have to actually worry about it with him, but with the tougher versions like the alphas, it's a little bit more of a big deal. So if you are not getting the shot that you want, or you can't exactly see what you want to shoot at, kind of pay attention a little bit to how he's moving. And when he moves and jags to the side that you want him, you can zoom in on him and he'll be kind of stuck there, and he'll move slowly. but you have lots of time to line your shot up and take it. Like if we wanted to just destroy his gun at this point, we could probably do a decent number on it. We probably, we wouldn't take it out completely, but with multiple shots, it might be a possibility. Or if we're closer and we want to just take out his arm so he can't use his gun anymore, whatever. Again, with the regen guys, that doesn't matter. But with the pain chameleon guys, that's a definite tactic that you can use. The mist repeller arms. They can't do any damage to you directly, but they can cause you some issues, right? So these mist emitter arms, sorry, not mist repeller, mist emitter arms can cause some problems for you. What they do is they just generate a big cloud of mist around this guy, and he can activate them more than once to make the cloud bigger. And so while it doesn't do any direct damage to you, there's a few things that it does that are pretty inconvenient. The first thing is it makes it harder to spot other Pandorans that are in the mist. A lot of times you'll lose sight of them, and at best you'll just have the little red ping like that. And so you can't see exactly what you're targeting, even if you free aim it. So that's a little bit of a problem. If your soldier is in the mist, every single Pandoran on the map knows exactly where he is, even if he hadn't been spotted previously. So any soldiers that go into the mist are automatically revealed to the Pandorans. And then the third problem, and the biggest problem, is mist causes willpower loss. You lose 2 will points per turn that you're in the mist. And so if you're running your soldiers kind of low will points because you've been using their abilities a lot, and this guy comes running up and mists all around them, it can cause them to panic. And it can be a big problem, especially if you kind of have a lot of enemies around you. So you do need to be very careful about these guys. Even if you've like disabled his gun and he can't physically hurt you anymore, his mist arms can still cause you problems. So you're going to want to not let him get too close to you, even if he's not really in a threat in any other way. So next thing to know about these guys, they're very low to the ground when they move. When they're actually moving around, they get down on all fours and they're extremely low to the ground. And so why that matters is when you're doing Overwatch, because if they're behind even low cover, and they're that low to the ground, most of your shots are going to hit the cover instead of hitting them. Low cover for them while they're moving is almost as good as tall cover when you're standing. And there's a slight chance that you're going to hit them because they are slightly higher than it, but it's a sliver. It's not very much. So when you're doing an Overwatch with these guys, don't do the Overwatch against them over any kind of low cover if you can help it, because you're just going to pump a bunch of shots into that fence or that crate or whatever it is while they're moving, and it's just they're just that low to the ground when they move. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is something that comes with the Legacy of the Ancients DLC. If you have that installed and you've got it turned on, you'll notice that a lot of these guys have this purple cloud around them. Okay, quite a few of them have that. And this is something, I covered this in my Arthrons video as well, but if you haven't seen that, I'll go over it again. These guys with the purple cloud have this ability called Tar Shadow. And so what happens is when you kill these guys, it actually spawns another, what's called a Triton Umbra. And they're pretty nasty actually to deal with. They have a lot of hit points and they hit really hard. They have 500 hit points, which is more than even these alphas back here. And they have a special pincer attack that does 90 points of damage with 20 piercing. So they kind of rip right through your armor and do a lot of damage to you. And it's a 1 action point attack. So if they get up on you, they're going to do a lot of damage. So I'm going to show you one of these things here real quick. Give me just a second to set that up, and I will show you kind of what they look like. Just a moment. Okay, so I've gotten rid of all the others except for this first one. And I've given myself a bunch of action points again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and kill this guy real quick. And that way you'll get to kind of see what happens here. So we're just gonna, it's gonna take probably maybe 2 shots. Maybe I can get it with 1 if I get his leg. Not quite, doesn't look like. That's fine. Just kill him off. Now, watch this. Okay, So we're out of actions. Now you notice this guy has a preparing icon on him and it's alerted already. So he's already actually spawned the next Umbra, but we can't do anything to him at this point, as far as I know, because there's nothing there to hit. So if we end the turn, here's what's going to happen. He's going to spawn up out of the ground there, and he spawns in with full action points. He's ready to go. He's going to walk over, and he's going to do a number on us here. 80 damage, 10 bleed, disabled leg, disabled arm. He's dead. Big problems with these guys, right? And again, you can take a look at this guy's stats. You know, he's got 500 health. He's got 18 will points. Movement is 26. He's fast. And if we look at the rest of his info, he only has a torso. He doesn't have any body parts other than that. Again, perception's only 15, which is about his only weakness. He can't see very far. And so if he's the only one that's left, he may not be able to see your guys. You might be able to kite him and hit him from long range without him knowing where you are. He has this pincer. It's actually an Arthron pincer, but it's on this Triton. 90 damage, 10 pierce, and effective range is 1, action points 1. So he ignores 10 points of armor. I think I might have said 20 before, but ignores 10 armor, does 90 damage. It's pretty nasty. So there's a few ways that you can deal with these guys and have them not spawn in the first place. The first way is if you kill the host with fire, the Umbra will not spawn. So if you can kill it with fire damage from a flamethrower or from a incendiary grenade or whatever, then the Umbra won't spawn. The second way is you can just paralyze the Triton instead of killing it. And so paralyzed Tritons count as killed at the end of the mission if all other mission objectives have been met. And that way they won't spawn the Umbra either. The third way is a lot riskier, but it works sometimes, is that you can disable them. And you can disable their weapon attacks. Now, again, this is only going to work with the Tritons on the Pain Chameleon ones, or if you happen to get their torso. Most of the time, if they can't hurt you, they'll run off the map. That's not always true. They do not run off the map if they're in one of their own bases, like a lair or a nest or something like that. They will not run off the map. They'll stay on the map and they'll just stand there bleeding until they bleed out. And at that point, they're going to spawn the Umbra again. So that's a much riskier way. Either they may not get off the map before they bleed out, or they may not leave the map at all. And so it's not a guaranteed way. So anyway, that's part of the Legacy of the Ancients DLC, and it does come pretty late in the game where you have to start worrying about these guys. But once you do, it's just random whether or not any given Triton, or Arthron for that matter, gets that ability to spawn the Umbras. And that's going to about do it, guys. That's about all I got for the Tritons. You're going to see them a lot, and you're going to deal with them a lot, and you're going to figure out a lot of this already. You've figured out quite a bit of this already, but if you're new to the game, this ought to give you a step up on how to deal with these guys. And so let me know any tips and tricks that you might have down in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas for dealing with them as well, because I don't know everything, still learning myself. So if you've enjoyed this video and you've learned anything from it, do me a big favor, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.